Hello everyone and welcome to a game you guys requested me to cover. It's a game I played this Sunday in the Croatian Chess League. My opponent was rated around 1800 and while I was, considered to be the favorite going into the game, of course you always have to play a very, very precise game. That's why the opening choice sort of made it difficult for me, but not really. I mean, it is a team event. It's 6 players versus 6 players and you want to do well. You can't just play anything when it's a team event. And my opponent invited me to go for the Evans Gambit, and I thought about not doing it, but then in the end I decided to do it, and this is the game that followed. So let's check it out. I of course opened with pawn to e4 as I usually do. My opponent played pawn to e5, knight f3, we have knight to c6 and bishop to c4. It's the pretty, sometimes maybe if I really prepare for a game, I might go for the Scotch, but the Italian game is what I usually play. Bishop to c5, and here I did take some time, like a minute, to think about, okay, you could play the standard stuff like castle d3, c3, c3, but pawn to b4 is what I usually go for, and it is what I played here. And for those of you who maybe do not know, I made a tutorial on how to play the Evans Gambit. It already has over 1 million views, so people are interested in it, so you check it out if you haven't. And I will make a sequel on it because well, many things were figured out after I've made that video. So okay, bishop captures on b4. You could play some other moves. You could play knight captures on b4. Sometimes bishop back to e7 is played. Some people even play bishop to b6, but I covered that in my tutorial. Bishop captures on b4 is the top move you can play here with black, and it is considered best. And my opponent did take some time here to decide what to play. Not sure if it was if the Evans Gambit came as a surprise to him, but he did. I think he took like 10 minutes here. So okay, bishop captures on b4. Some people take time to think about the position, even when they know what they will play. Even when they're 100% sure what they will play, they still, for some reason, take the time to see what happens next. Even when it's a forced move. I've even seen it when it's a check, you have only move, and then players think about it, instead of making the move and then thinking about it. So I have no idea what happened. But okay, c3, and my opponent went back, bishop to e7. Now also in my tutorial I will cover all of the squares that the bishop can go to. Bishop to e5, it is the main line, and it is the, I would say, the most dangerous one. For black you could go bishop back to c5, which doesn't make all that much sense. Bishop to d6 also playable, bishop to e7 also playable, and there are even some games where bishop to f8 was played. So here my opponent went bishop to e7. This is perfectly fine. This is the so-called Anderson variation, and I played pawn to d4, as you always have to play this. This is what Kasparov played against Anand in their famous game in the Tal Memorial of 1995, where he defeated Anand very nicely. But Anand went for knight to a5, which is today, alongside knight h6, considered to be the top move. And then Kasparov retreated the bishop to e2, and so on and so on. If you haven't seen it, I made a video on it some 7 years ago. I will put a link to it, first link in the description below, if you want to check out how Kasparov plays it. But my opponent played pawn to d6, which is also perfectly fine. I played queen to b3, attacking the f7 pawn. And usually everyone plays knight to a5 here. It's just the way you have to play against it. Knight to a5, attacking the queen and the bishop, and now capturing on f7 is your only way of playing. You will capture on f7, and then sometimes, well, not often, but sometimes people will make the mistake of going king d7, where you can just checkmate them. You will play knight captures on e5, and after pawn captures you will deliver a queen to e6 checkmate. But more often than not, people will go king f8, and then you have to play queen to a4. Otherwise, if you go something like queen to b5, yes, you are attacking the knight, but c6 attacks the queen and defends the knight, and now you just blunder a piece. So you have to play something like queen a4, attack the knight, and once king captures on f7, you will play queen captures on a5, and okay, the game continues. Something like b6 can be played, or captures here on d4. It's a nice position. But after queen b3, my opponent played the immediate e captures on d4, and I've never seen this, so I did, think about the position a little bit, not too much, because I know that knight to a5 is the only move for black here. So I captured on f7. I guess I thought maybe my opponent thought that it was all the same whether you move the king right away or play knight to a5 first. He played king to f8, and now I played bishop captures on g8, because if I allow knight to a5, my queen will be out of squares to defend the bishop, so I have to play it. He played rook captures on g8, and I castled kingside, and this is my the most imprecise move I have made in the entire game. I thought I definitely don't want to capture, and I really don't mind if he captures and then I get to activate my knight, so I castle kingside here. Better would be to play c captures on d4 and allow him to, you know, gain some developing moves as well, because after this castles kingside, my opponent missed pawn to d3. And okay, I will win this pawn eventually, but it will also give him enough time to also develop. Bishop f6, he can play b6, maybe bishop b7, bishop to e6. Also, if bishop to a6 lands while the pawn is on d3, that could be even more annoying. Then, you know, it's definitely a way for him to get back into the game. But he played knight to a5, and now I played queen to c2, where d3 again is definitely better than d captures on c3, because yes, you win material, but with the king on f8, you shouldn't really be going for material. So he played d captures on c3. I played knight captures on c3 and bishop to e6. Okay, the bishop is very nicely placed here. Maybe, you know, knight to c4 is a way for him to get back that knight into the game. Maybe bishop to c4 is an idea. And here I thought about a lot of moves. I thought about rook to b1. I thought about getting the bishop into the game. I thought about rook e1. Thought about knight d5, knight to d4. Those are all moves that can be played. Rook to d1 is, in fact, the top move recommended by the engine. I played knight to d4, which is not in the top 3 recommendations, but also, you know, it's very good for white, attacking the bishop on e6. And I thought, okay, if he goes back, bishop to f7, then we continue going after the black king, and then we try to open up the position somehow. With the bishops out of the way, it would be, you know, it would take a lot of moves to open up the position, but still, I don't know, with the rook on g8 and king on f8, I thought, you know, there's no way that this could ever be bad for me. So instead, after this knight to d4 move, he played queen to d7. I thought about bishop to c4 as well, but this is never a threat. If that bishop ever moves from controlling e6, you can just land knight e6 check, and that's pretty much it. So after knight d4, he played queen to d7, decided to defend the bishop and also just to defend this e6 square if the bishop ever moves. And I played the immediate knight to d5. Again, I thought about knight captures on e6 check first, because I really didn't like bishop to f7. But, you know, something in me decided to keep material on the board and make the position more complicated. I played knight to d5, and now he should most definitely play bishop to f7. And while I'm still better, it's annoying. There are many ways you could play this. You could play bishop to a3. You could go something, maybe knight f5 is also very nice. The problem with knight f5 is that he will have to capture the bishop, but after he captures, I don't have time to bring the knight back to d4 and then to e6, because once he plays bishop to f6, if I ever go knight to d4, he will of course capture it, and once I move the rook to b1, he is in time. He can start playing b5. He can get back into the game. It's still a very, very difficult position for black, but it's definitely the way to be played. But okay, I thought, you know, the complications would go my way. And he played bishop captures on d5. It's actually the only move I considered him to play, aside of bishop to f7. He played it. I played e captures on d5, now gaining full control over the e6 square, and he played pawn to g6. I played knight to e6 with check, king to f7, and now, again, I thought about many moves, like getting the bishop into the game, bishop g5 even. I thought about rook to b1, but I decided to go for queen to d2. It allows me to remaneuver with tempo, as the knight now is hanging, and I also thought, well, if he goes knight to c4, that would just be terrible. I can go queen to f4 check, pick up the knight, so obviously not happening. And there's even a nice variation where, for example, knight to c4, I played queen. I can play queen to f4 with check, and if he goes bishop to f6, I can capture the knight on c4. And if he plays bishop captures back, I can then go queen back to f4 with check. And if he goes back bishop to f6, I can play bishop to b2, sort of winning material. And if he defends queen to e2, then I go rook to e1, and well, it's very, very unlikely that black can hold this. Now I know that he cannot, but in the game I thought, yeah, there's no way. I mean, there's just putting your queen on the e-file. There's no way you can play this. Yeah, so he played bishop to f6 right away, and I simply moved the rook to b1 and pawn to b6. This is how he defended the knight, and this is up until this point I was playing well fairly quickly. I don't think I've taken more than maybe a 5-minute thing, maybe a 10-minute thing. But here I took like a 25-minute thing, maybe even a half an hour thing, because I really wanted to, you know, play it out to perfection. I want to ruin my position. I know my position was, you know, spectacular. I wanted to finish it off nicely, and the moves that I considered were queen to f4, well, for obvious reasons. Then you can go bishop to b2. I considered queen to h6, which is the top move recommended by the engine, but it's not the move that I played, because while it is nice, there are some ways that black could maybe defend, but I missed the most obvious reply. For example, rook to g7. I knew I never wanted to capture because that knight is simply too valuable, but I missed the following line, bishop g5, and after he defends, there's this very nice queen captures on g7. And okay, you just win a piece and you don't care. Bishop captures, king captures, and knight captures on g7. Now you're up a full rook, of course, completely winning. So while it is, I did calculate it a little bit, the move that I really was calculating was queen to f4 and the rook to b4. All of them are winning, so it was hard to decide. Queen to f4. The reason why it's also very strong is that once my opponent makes a move, let's say rook a8, I go bishop to b2, and of course you have to defend this somehow. Let's say you give up a little bit of material, queen captures. Okay, you can go rook fe1, you can attack the queen f5, and now queen h6 will be winning for me, because after captures and captures, I mean, I'm up the exchange, and his king is wide in the open. But I was 100% sure that my rook to b4 move is the top move recommended by the engine. It's in fact the second top move recommended by the engine. But yeah, okay, you guys will say I'm like obsessed with the b4 square, but I knew that it was crucial. And the reason why I was calculating it for so long is that I thought my opponent's reply was going to be c6, and I had to be sure that it did not work, because what I was calculating is that after pawn to c6 and rook to f4, is that after c captures on d5, how do I make this work? And then I had to figure out if all of it works. I wanted to play rook captures on f6, and once my opponent captured the rook, I wanted to play queen g5 check and sacrifice the knight as well. And okay, I calculated that if you capture the knight, obviously you're going to lose. Queen to g4 check, or even rook to e1 is enough, but queen to g4 check is more precise. King to e7, and now bishop to g, not rook e1. If you play rook e1, the king escapes. You have to play this, and now if you want to keep defending the queen, you have to play king to e8, and now rook to e1 check gets the job done. You will capture the queen, and now you will checkmate the black king, you know, whichever way. So after queen to g5 check, I knew king captures on e6 wasn't an option, but after king to f7, this is where I struggle a little bit, but I was able to calculate over the board. I found queen to f4 to be the only winning idea, and that black has no replies. The power of the knight on e6 guarding f8 and g7 was just so strong that there's just nothing that you can do. You cannot capture on e6. Rook to e1 would just be instant checkmate. If you go to e8, also doesn't work. Rook to e1, and now whatever you play, I mean, the knight either wins the queen with a discovery, or well, there's just no move that black can play. The only other move, maybe king to e7. Here you would again have to calculate, but queen g5 or queen to h4 check is enough. You give a check, again capturing the knight is impossible, and after the king moves, again rook e1, and all of the variations that we discussed simply work. Whatever you play, if you try to escape, otherwise you're going to lose the queen. If you try to escape, then even queen captures on h7 becomes an option, and well, something like bishop g5 check, king f4 and queen h3 can also be a checkmate. But interestingly, because I've thought about the position for so long, here, like I said, maybe even half an hour, my opponent also was calculating at the board. As soon as I played rook b4, he played g5, and I thought, and I haven't even considered g5 as a response from him, because now that I'm analyzing, I can see that all of the position is winning, and okay, I have many options. But during the game, I thought, okay, you know, maybe it's some sort of a critical line that I have to find. Otherwise, my opponent could somehow get back into the game if, for example, c6 and captures on d5 is an option. But after g5, pretty much anything is perfectly fine. You can play pawn to f4, you can just remaneuver the queen to the light squares. I played rook to e1 first because I knew that, okay, e-file had to be controlled, and okay, my opponent played pawn to c5, and I played rook to e4, now just doubling up on the e-file, and I really stopped thinking about it because I couldn't figure out what my opponent could even play. He played pawn to h6, stopping any queen captures, not queen captures on g5, but he wanted to add support to g5, and also maybe not make the h7 pawn a target, but we don't really care about the pawn, we just want to infiltrate with the queen. So I played queen to e2, now tripling up on the e-file, and again my opponent doesn't have all that much to do. He did play king to g6, and now I played queen to d3. I did consider queen to g4 for a little bit with the idea of maybe knight to f4 check, winning the queen on d7, but he can move the queen and then I have to calculate again, and then h4, and that requires a lot of calculating. So I decided to play queen to d3 instead, threatening all sorts of nasty discoveries here, and not much for my opponent. If he played king to f7 now I would play queen to h3, because now king g6, of course, I have this, I'm up a move, so I win the queen easily. But after queen d3, my opponent played pawn to c4. I had no idea why. It's actually the second top move recommended by the engine, but it just allows for me to deliver a very, very swift checkmate. I played rook captures with check, and now he cannot go back. If he goes back, then I play rook c7, and I win the black queen. So my opponent played king to h5, and now there is a very, very nice checkmate here. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for me while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding either a checkmate in 4 or a checkmate in 3, or even a checkmate in 2 being pawn to g4. Those are all winning. So if you found either of the 3, congratulations, you are an amazing player. I played rook to h4 check. It's the first move that I thought of, so I didn't look for a mate in 2, but this of course is a mate in 2. So I'm a little bit sad that I played mate in 3 instead of mate in 2, but well, I mean, what can you do? I looked at rook h3. I saw it was mate, and I didn't look for a faster one. So yeah, I played rook h4 check. My opponent, of course, had to capture. If you don't capture, I mean, you could capture with the king, then queen h3 is checkmate. So he captured with the pawn, and I played queen f5 check. And finally, I get to the undefended queen on d7, but I no longer am interested in the queen. Now I'm interested in the king. It doesn't matter if you block with the bishop or with the rook. He played rook to g5, and now I can capture it with the knight. I can capture it with the bishop, but of course I played knight to f4 checkmate. And yeah, that was the game. 27 moves. Nice Evans Gambit game. My opponent could have played a bit more precisely here. He kind of made it easy for me after this e captures on d4 move. Like, you have to play knight to a5 here. The engine says, okay, you can even play king to f8 here. If you already play this bishop to e7 line, you can play it, but not in this particular way after e captures on d4. It's probably still not winning by force for white, at this point, but it's much easier to play than, for example, if you play what Anand played against Kasparov in 95, this knight to a5 move, then you have to work for your meal. But yeah, sorry about that. Very interesting game, and I had to find a couple of nice ideas, even though now that I've analyzed it, okay, most of them were okay for me, but still at the board, it's always very dangerous. You never know what lurks in the shadows of the Evans Gambit. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, if you haven't seen the game Kasparov versus Anand 1995 Tal Memorial, first link in the description below. Very nice presentation of the Evans Gambit by the legend Garry Kasparov. Also, if you haven't checked out my Evans Gambit tutorial, will be the first link in the description below. So yeah, have fun with it. Comment on it, recommend it to other people. It is the best way to play against against the bishop to c5 setup. Maybe this is also fine, but I would say, like, if you're not 2400, you should stick to the Evans Gambit. And even after that, like, I don't think it's still, I mean, it hasn't been officially refuted. Black can play against it, but, you know, if you make it your weapon, if you have something to throw at your opponent, which they're not really accustomed to, and they're gonna burn time, especially, you know, in Bullet Blitz. This was played in Classical. Okay, maybe at the top level, no one will play it in Classical, but Classical being played less and less nowadays, I believe the Evans Gambit is definitely a nice weapon to have ready. So, you know, give it a try. Over 1 million people saw my tutorial, so people are interested in it. You know, give it a try. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Christopher Medema, Elias Wilhelm, Peter Van Dost, Derek King, and Charles Benjamin Flynn for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.